Sorry about that, Jennifer. We have trying to get the Wi-Fi connected over here. Jennifer Escue, thank you so much for joining us on our Marcy's Law interview series, Why We Do What We Do. It was you were so highly recommended from different places in Tennessee, and you're obviously very busy because we've been trying to get you for a couple of months now. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and taking the time to get to know us and get to know me. And I wore my purple for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I know this is a really, every day is a busy day and every time is a busy time for you. But could you just tell us a little bit about the organization that you are the CEO of and how long you've been there and how you got there?
Sure. I am the CEO of the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. So it's a dual coalition. It works on both domestic and sexual violence. It's been around for 40 years. It came out of the grassroots women's movement back in the 80s. And I have been there actually for only about 4 years. I started in the pandemic in 2021, and I started as the director of programs and then moved into the CEO role 2 years later when our longtime CEO had moved on.
And we got to know you from Marcy's Law. Actually, you first got to know Marcy's Law through another person that I had interviewed for this Why We Do What We Do series, Dr. Christina Policastro, who does some unbelievable work and research in this space. And she was at one of your at the Tommy Burke's Academy. Could you tell us a little bit quickly about the Tommy Burke's Academy and how you got to know about Marcy's Law at the Academy?
Sure. So the Tommy Burke's Academy is named after a state senator from Tennessee, Senator Tommy Burks, who was actually he was a champion of victim services, and he was murdered by his opponent. So there were some funds after that, and it was left to fund a victim service academy, which is it enables us to train to provide 40 hours of training to new advocates in the field to ensure that they're providing best practices, appropriate trauma informed services to survivors. And as part of that, we go over some of the history and the laws, the path that we've taken in this country to develop our criminal justice response to domestic and sexual violence. And I learned about Marcy's Law in a session at that academy that Dr. Policastro presented on, talking about victims' rights.
And that's how you got to know our state director in Tennessee,
Yes.
Bonnie Brzezina, as well. And
Yes.
and we have really enjoyed the partnership, and we were happy to sponsor your annual conference.
We appreciate it, and having the chance to talk more with Bonnie and introduce her to all of our member programs so that they can learn about the work that Marcy's Law is doing.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the on the ground partnership too, because you really are a hub and quite a connector, not just with the academy, but with all of the different programs that you run and the different stakeholders and everyone that becomes really a beneficiary of all of your knowledge and all of your programs. And so it really has been a great partnership and a great connection. So we really appreciate it. When we go into a state to try to get Marcy's Law passed, it doesn't happen overnight. It is, especially in Tennessee, it's been a couple of years, and it's going to be a little bit longer. But it really gives us the opportunity to meet the people on the ground who actually do the work, get the work done. And we're blessed because everybody that we meet and that we've met in Tennessee has just been so helpful and such a great friend. So thank you so much for all of that. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the programs that you guys run. You run a lot of different programs and a couple of new ones that you're working on now. I want to start with those and then maybe get into a couple of the other ones that you do. One of them is specialized treatment for children in domestic violence situations. Could you tell us a little bit about why that's important and what you're doing?
Yes, this is a new project, and we're really excited about it because we're really wanting to look at, our mission is at a high level to end domestic and sexual violence in the state of Tennessee. And to do that, you really need to look at the root causes of the issue. So this project is allowing us to have a demonstration project that's going to be located in Nashville with our partners at the Mary Parish Center. That is going to look at a specialized curriculum for children who've been exposed to domestic violence, because we know that exposure as a child can later impact a person becoming a victim or a perpetrator or experiencing other impacts that are difficult. So we're going to be monitoring that project with the help of some researchers out of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville and evaluating it, and then taking the lessons that are learned and sharing them across the state with all of our different member programs and partners, and adding it into our state prevention plan so that we can address the unique needs of children who are exposed to domestic violence.
And the other program that you're talking about is that you're working on now, that you and I have been talking about, was the intersection of substance abuse
Mhm.
with domestic violence, and how substance abuse can play into the whole idea of domestic violence, whether it's used as a weapon, or
Mhm.
sometimes it starts out by you were telling me how that starts out, your research has shown with a um, pretty commonly as a coping mechanism.
Mhm. Exactly. Yes. So as I said, I've only been in my role for 2 years. And one of the first things I wanted to do, we're a membership organization. The domestic violence and sexual assault programs across the state are our members, and I wanted to go visit them. And so I had been traveling across the state, visiting all of them and asking them what their biggest challenges were that they saw for survivors. And the answers were housing, mental health, and substance abuse at every place that I went to. So when the state had money available from some of the pharmaceutical lawsuits surrounding opioid use, they made that money available for grants for different projects that were proposed. And this I felt like was a really good opportunity for us to look at building our capacity across the state to support survivors, first of all, to prevent them from becoming substance involved if possible, but then if they are, to ensure that our victim service providers and our substance abuse treatment centers are all able to provide appropriate survivor center services for them, that those services are available, that we are working together to inform the public about what that can look like, what coercion with substance abuse can look like, and then providing linkages to treatment, including we are going to be offering some statewide telehealth trauma counseling for free to survivors who are at risk of developing substance abuse problems. Is going to be targeted especially in those areas where there is a lack of resources for counseling.
And could you tell us just a little bit about just kind of the wide reach that you have throughout the state, some of the different stakeholders that you work with on
Mhm.
a regular basis, some of the, for instance, some of the organizations that will that come, for instance, to the training academy, the Tommy Burks Academy.
Mhm. Sure. So we really do want to, the coalition is a convener. We want to bring together all of those people who touch the lives of survivors, who can have an impact on their experience. And so we work, of course, with our domestic and sexual violence shelters and programs, rape crisis centers, but we also work with law enforcement, DA's office, public defenders, the judicial system, legislators, and just anyone really who is interested in becoming a victim service advocate, or working on these issues. So university students, organizations like Marsy's Law. So it really is very, it's a really wide range.
Yes, and it's so helpful to work with an organization like yours, and with someone like you who has such a great knowledge and a great knowledge base of the survivor network. Because one of the things that we do when we go into a state is not just try to get Marcy's Law passed, which is the first step, but we always maintain a presence in the state
Mhm.
after we get it passed, so we can help, for instance, your coalition, and so we can help law enforcement, so we can help DA's offices and everybody that's kind of part of the system, as to how Marcy's Law will impact them, and how they can navigate the system, and how they can use their enforceable constitutional rights under Marcy's Law to help them feel empowered as victims. It's something that you and I talked about a little bit, as far as victims having to navigate a system. One, it's so foreign and it moves so fast,
Mhm.
and to understand exactly what each step in the process means, but then having to navigate it really at a deficit from the outset, because by definition, you're navigating it in probably one of, if not the most traumatic moments of your
Exactly.
life.
Mhm.
And so to have all of these people not just existing, but communicating and
Mhm.
understanding what each person's role is. So for you, like you're saying, a convener, to have someone like you and your coalition to be conveners like that is so critical to helping. Ultimately, what we're all in this for is to help a survivor get through what they have to get through. Um, one of the you guys have so many different programs and so many different arms. Could you tell us a little bit about? I think it's called prevention, but it's PREVEN and then capital T, capital N for Tennessee.
PreventTN.org. Yes, that is our sort of clearinghouse for all of the different prevention activities that are happening across the state, so that we can look at what the collective impact is. It gives details on how to implement these programs in your area for people that are interested, and it provides a lot of prevention statistics and data, which can be useful if people are writing, for instance, grant proposals to begin new prevention programs. It's hard to find funding for prevention. So we really want to put all the supports in place that we can, for more prevention activities in the state.
And one of the things that I saw that when I was looking at some of the Prevent TN programs, I saw that you have a really cool logo, and then I noticed that it was a lotus, and I just wanted to read why you chose the lotus as your logo, because it's a symbol of resilience, and through mud and storms, and this is on your website, the lotus flower blooms, reminding us that hope springs from the darkest of places. Our fight for a safer and more just world is deeply rooted in a resilient hope like the lotus. Um, and so I don't think I'll be able to look at a lotus now without thinking of you and the great work that you guys do. And in that program of Prevent TN, there's so many different programs that you're doing, but I wanted to just focus on a couple of them. One of them, financial literacy. A lot of times people don't really think about the fact that abuse comes in all sorts of different forms, and it's not always just physical abuse. Sometimes it's financial abuse. And
Mm-hmm.
could you tell us a little bit about what financial abuse is in the domestic violence and intimate partner violence space, and what you guys are doing around financial abuse, specifically financial literacy in the program that you're doing?
Sure. So financial abuse can look a lot of different ways. It can look like preventing someone from working, or if they are working, sabotaging their work, demanding that their money all be handed over to you, so that they don't have any of their own money. They don't have access to their own money. Sometimes you'll see victims who talk about being given an allowance and being tracked. So those are ways of maintaining control, because that's at the root, of course, of domestic violence, is the desire of one person to control and have power over another. And money is a persuasive way of doing that. So, what we really want to do with that is first look at, again, as root causes of violence, ensuring that people have access to financial systems, and laws that are equitable and that are fair and that promote and help families. And then we have a different curriculum that will walk survivors or victims who have been denied access to their own money. Maybe their credit's been damaged because of the actions of their abuser. It's possible that they've never managed their own bank account. So really walking them through some of those basics, and giving them a safe place to learn about that. So that's really what we're working on as far as financial literacy, but also in sort of the larger picture, there's a workplace component to that too, because of course, ensuring that survivors have access to work that is safe, and talking about how workplaces can help protect survivors and have policies in place that support them. So we're looking at it kind of comprehensively.
Yeah, and they really end up becoming practical empowerment tools.
Exactly.
Well, not just giving them the financial, showing them how to be able to get financially independent, but actually, like you said, trying to figure it out, because there's so many times that the controlling partner will be doing everything.
Mhm.
But then when the controlling partner is gone and when they try to safely get away, they haven't done any of this.
Exactly.
And they're really learning it for the first time. Like you said, even
Mhm.
learning how to apply for a credit card,
Right.
um, and how all of that works. Um, and another program that you and I were talking about was a program that you've described as engaging men.
Hmm. Yes. So domestic violence can impact anyone. And what we also know is that the majority of victims are female and the majority of offenders are male. So, with that being the truth, we know that while the victim service movement really is part of the women's movement, we can't end domestic and sexual violence unless we bring men along with us, and unless we we ensure that men are also in the spaces they're in working to eliminate this issue. So we do several different things with this. We bring in, of course, training all the time to talk about the ways that men can be involved in ending domestic violence. And we're doing another demonstration project, a pilot project out in Chattanooga, working on training men to be mentors to younger men, and talking about healthy relationships and consent and respect, trying to change those attitudes that allow this program or this problem to persist.
Yeah, and that kind of mentoring is something that you guys have done over the years in different programs. One of the programs that you had done at one point, I had seen was a peer-led model on campuses, and one of the incredible statistics that was really alarming was that 26% of female and 7% of male undergraduates will experience sexual violence on a college campus.
Mhm.
And you guys deserve a lot of credit for the work that you did on that peer-led program where and you did get a lot of success. I saw that there was a survey, 92% responded that they learned what they learned in the training was useful and was going to be applied in their everyday lives
Mhm.
as college undergraduates.
Mhm.
Um, and as you and I talked about, I have a couple that are done and one that's in college now. You've got a couple that are going to be going, and it's
Mhm.
as as a parent, it is something that when you drop them off of college for the first time, it's you realize how young they are. You forget when
Mhm.
we were there, we all felt like we were grown-ups, but
Mhm.
it is, it is a scary place to navigate, especially when you look at those kind of stats. So the
Yes.
kind of work that you guys do is so appreciated. Um, I wanted to wrap up. Like I said, we call this why we do what we do, and everyone's in this space. That a lot of people that are in this space, the majority, have either personal stories that have led them to this, or personal stories that validate their great work that they're doing in this. And you shared with me a story about very personal story about your sister that you said you wouldn't mind sharing with the Marcy's Law crowd.
Mhm. Yes. My sister is actually wasn't very long ago was in a very very dangerous high risk domestic violence situation, and even with everything that I knew about domestic violence and all the contacts that I had, you know, I couldn't do much to help her until she was able to get in a place where she could be safe trying to leave, and she was able to do that, but it wasn't without difficulty. And in fact, there was a time at which her life was really in danger, and as were the lives of three other of this person's other victims. And I watched the system come together, the domestic violence program in that area, along with ADAs in two counties, victim witness coordinators, some detectives, all coming together to support these victims and to really, I mean, I believe that their lives were saved by the work that was done by this group of people. So watching that happen and watching, so through all that support, still how difficult it can be for survivors, you know, what a fine balance they're walking between wanting to leave and also wanting to leave alive, wanting to be able to survive that. Um, and knowing that then their as their case goes to the system, the vulnerability in that, because they're scared. It's their, you know, it's their whole lives, and being afraid that any, you know, miscommunication, something goes a little bit wrong, that it could mean, you know, it could mean life or death for them. And just watching how hard that is for a normal person to navigate. And then, like you said, to do that in a time of crisis and in a state of fear is, um, it's big. So it's been really important to me to see that work play out in my real life. And again, to see that these people that I've been working with every day, like they literally saved my sister's life. She's here because of them. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it really is. It really is incredible, and that's where we at Marcy's Law um, try to step in once Marcy's Law is passed to be able to um, help people like your sister or
Mhm,
survivors once they start hitting the system, the foreign land of the criminal
mhm,
justice system,
mhm,
and doing it in a vulnerable state of having just experienced and continuing to experience trauma. Sometimes these cases can take months,
mhm.
years,
Years.
decades,
Mhm,
um, because even if the person is the perpetrator is convicted, sometimes it's not for life. Sometimes
mhm,
they have parole hearings.
mhm,
Sometimes they're moved from facility to facility.
mhm,
Even before then, there are bail hearings and
mhm,
there are sentencing hearings. And so, what Marcy's Law does, once Marcy's Law is the law of the land in a particular state, it empowers victims to the extent that they now have meaningful and enforceable constitutional rights as a
mhm,
victim. They have a constitutional right to be notified if there's a bail hearing and to participate in that bail hearing and to
mhm,
participate in a sentencing hearing and to be notified if there's going to be a parole hearing and there's a possibility that someone's going to be released, whether they be
mhm,
released from a sentence, whether they be released on bail. And those are just some of the rights. And we feel so blessed to be able to be a part of the victim's story of getting back on their feet and
mhm,
feeling empowered as they navigate this brutal system, and that they can feel like they have constitutional rights too. Uh,
mhm,
all along the way. And it really struck me when you told me that personal story about your sister and how you saw how whether it was victim witness advocates or DAs or the sheriff's department,
mhm,
when it all comes together, you feel like you were able to contribute in just a small way to try to relieve some of the pain.
mhm.
And just like when you're talking about the financial literacy program, not just relieve some of the pain, but to get people back on their feet, and to realize that tomorrow is another day, right?
Mhm,
Just along the lines of the lotus and you're
mhm,
a symbol of resiliency and hope.
mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
so but I just wanted to I wanted to thank you for all the work that you do. I know you guys really don't stop, and there's a lot of pressure on you being the head of all of it, and there's so many tentacles, and you reach statewide. So I really appreciate the work that you do, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing with Marcy's Law. And the partnership that you guys have given us so far, and we look forward to continuing it as we get it passed, and then after we get it passed to help as many survivors and people in your network as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing for victims.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Have a
Mhm.
great day. Have a great
You
weekend.
too. You too.
Thanks so much.
Bye bye.